On this episode of AV Week, we look at the commercial version of voice control. PSA has bought USAV, and CODA Audio is entering the U.S. market. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 299, recorded Friday, May 19th, 2017. Co-opetition. Support for AVNation is brought to you by Extron Electronics and by Peerless AV, the official outdoor display provider of Daytona International Speedway. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albert. I am your host. With us this week to discuss said news and information. First and foremost, he's a fabulous audio professional, works for a small little company called Harman. Also happens to be our digital guru, I guess, or digital janitor. His name is Bradford Ben. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's a nice, fun-filled Friday.
Should be.
Yeah.
We got some interesting topics to cover here. So
yeah, I've been playing with lighting all morning.
Well, that's the we were about 3 or 4 weeks out from Infocom. That is going to be one of the things we talk about, actually, because the next young lady that I introduce is involved heavily in the center stage and some really cool stuff. Her name is Kirsten Nelson. She is the editor at large for SCN and also writes really great content for other folks as well. How are you, ma'am?
I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Last but not least, he is a newbie, so you two be nice to him. His name is Earl. He works for Peerless AV, and God love him, he's sporting a Cardinals jersey in the midst of Cubs country.
I'm a brave soul, aren't I?
You are a brave soul,
Yep.
brother. But he's next to my heart because I'm just outside of St. Louis here. So.
Yeah, but they have a great audio system in Busch Stadium.
But they have a great audio system in both places. I would not that I'm trying to be Switzerland, but they really do. Bradford says that because apparently there's probably Harman somewhere in there. So
yeah, someone's run the bases at that stadium.
Has to have one of the companies of Harman, correct?
Yeah, actually, yeah, just a couple. Well, now also with Samsung as our owner, I'm sure there's a Samsung device.
At least one.
Yeah.
They probably have a TV somewhere in there. All right, let's get this moving here. First and foremost, not for nothing, but let's kick this off with Harman. And this is something I want. I've been teaching a class for a organization called AVI Systems. They're an integrator out of Minneapolis. They have several offices throughout the middle of the country and a couple out west. But I've been doing a class on IT, IoT, and security. And one of the things that we talk about in IoT and security is the voice control. And there are security concerns with IoT and voice control. And we talk about Alexa a lot and the integration of Alexa and some of the other control platforms. And we get into that and we talk about a little bit of the commercialized. And when I talk about the commercialized, I talk about Harman and IBM. And the reason I talk about Harman and IBM is because this last ISE in this past February, Harman introduced the IBM integration. And Bradford is going to correct me all kinds of different ways here. Basically, is Harman is utilizing and is renting processing power from Watson, IBM's Watson, to do their voice control. And they can do some certain things, like they can specialize it. So instead of walking into a room and saying, Alexa, turn on the lights, you can walk into a room and say, Marriott, turn on the lights. And it's a small little customization, but it's kind of cool. But it's also a way to get commercial folks a little bit more comfortable with voice control. Not for nothing, but certain IT managers and certain enterprise folks feel a little more comfortable with IBM than they do Amazon. That's the best way I can put that. So this also raises a lot of issues and concerns, though, with security and some things like net neutrality and things of that nature. So real quickly, Bradford, I want to start with you on this. How comfortable should the integrator, the AV integrator going into work on Monday morning, how comfortable should they be as we walk into this commercialized version of voice control?
Well, so there's a couple different things. The first thing is the way the wake word works. And this is the same because Harman is doing voice control with Bixby from Samsung, with Microsoft Cortana, with IBM Watson. So we're kind of all over the place. And what we're doing is using that as the interface. It's not actually, we're not interpreting the words. That's done by the smart computer.
That's done and remotely. And let's be clear, you have to be,
you have to be connected to the internet. So the security policies and the privacy policies vary by each person. The Harman system that we're using currently listens for the wake word, like you said, Marriott. It could be JBL. It could be, if you're at a conference room, it could be conference room on. It could be any of that stuff. So in terms of security, it does not connect to the internet until it hears the wake word. And then it transmits I wouldn't say great quality, but enough of a quality message to be able to convert that back to a command that it sends to the controller, such as the AMX controller. So security is going to be an issue because basically you have the capability of having a microphone in the room, which is also but what I say, that's almost as bad as having a phone in the room nowadays, but it's the same thing. From a security standpoint, you can do various things ranging from unplugging it if it's a meeting that's that confidential to, not to having a passcode to all sorts of things. But the data that goes back and forth on any of these systems is relatively small. It's supposed to be those snippets of after the wake word to the pause, and depending on each service's privacy policy depends how much you get it saves. And that is honestly by provider. I have read a couple of them, and
real quickly, you said by provider. What do you define provider for me?
Oh, sorry. By provider means how long. Well, I'll use Apple and Google as an example. If you use an Apple iPhone, it has a different privacy policy for how long it actually stores the message that you said, like Siri, do this, as an audio file, versus Google, which stores, hello, Google, do this. There's different policies from that provider, the people who are doing the text-to-speech and the contextual decisions.
Okay.
And we can go on and on about how I think actually the better win is going to be in conference rooms. Because it sounds silly, but the fact that Watson and Bixby and sorry, my brain just hurt, and Microsoft all can do some smart. So if you walk into a conference room and say, close the drapes, close the blinds, drop the, close the curtains, those are all three different commands that are the same thing on the touch panel. But someone doesn't have to think about the touch panel and go, okay, it says curtains. Which
or
one's that?
Or even beyond that, Bradford, they could just say start meeting. And
right.
Again, this is the programmer part of me. They can just say start meeting, and 3 or 4 macros can happen at the same time.
Right. It's just like having the touch panel. It's another interface into the system. But what's nice is it makes it a little more human readable and human easy. So there is that question of security versus ease of use. And you're always going to have that challenge. It's the exact same thing with iPhones.
No.
It can listen.
Earl, I want to bring you on this because one thing that Peerless is getting into are these kiosks, these digital kiosks, and you guys have got a couple different ones. You were showing some at DSC this year. You'll be showing some at Infocom. But these are things where people can plug in their phones, right, to recharge. They also have a electric vehicle one, which is kind of cool to watch being built. But how do you guys address some of the security issues with, or are there no security? People are just no big deal. I'll plug in my phone and not worry about what's on the other end.
No, Tim, this is a valid point that we encounter as well on our kiosks products. We have credit card readers, beacon technologies and such, and that speaks to the anonymity of a consumer or someone that wants privacy. Beacon technology is going to be utilized, I believe, at Infocom for the first time. And, it is a bit big brother. So I think it's like any new technology at first, it can intimidate the consumer. But at some point, there's a tipping point of adoption to where it becomes so pervasive, it's accepted. It's just similar to, the first time we went on and made our first purchase across the internet. What about security? And today, no one thinks about that. Look at Amazon.
Yeah.
So.
I unfortunately, I don't think I thought of security the first time I purchased something on the internet. So I do now that I've met Bradford, though. Bradford.
Yeah, there's a reason I'm in charge of the security on the website.
Yes. Kirsten, wrap this whole thing up for me, mainly because you've got not a better view, but a broader view and a 50,000 foot view, talking with integrators and talking with manufacturers and other folks like that. Where are we going when it comes to voice control and security and commercial AV?
Yeah, I've been watching that almost kind of from the outside because I just wrote an article about conversational UI and the future of that. Because the people who've been developing chat bots, the little things that pop up and say, hello, can I help? I talked to a few of those developers and, they're predicting a future that's much more interesting in terms of its conversational UI versus all these query bots, which, Alexa is one. I think, those are very limited in what they can do for us in a control or interactive sense. But that's why the Harman partnering with Watson thing's pretty interesting, because that's an actual AI and it will learn you and it will get smarter as you operate, as you work in the room. And I think that's much more interesting for us to be looking at. And when I do talk to integrators about it, I think Infocom this year, like we're all saying, it'll probably be one of the first shows where voice control is a little more interesting than people shouting into their phones or arguing with Siri. This is like, I think we're finally going to be seeing it in an application where it might be useful to us, either with the concierge system that Harman wants to build. And in fact, at Center Stage, we are going to have a session on the topic, but it features Alexa.
Don't tell them that.
That's okay. We're going to have Watson in our booth so you can actually come and test it out right
You
there.
guys should have a battle royale between Watson and Alexa and throw Google in there.
I did Google and Siri against each other, but I have not done Alexa because I refuse to put one in my house.
Yeah.
I'll send you one.
Yeah.
Now, there is something I do want to point out that Earl touched on and Kirsten touched on. First, to Earl's point, those who are watching the video will see me holding up a little red USB throughput device. It's not focused as well as I want, but it's called a data block and smart charger. Because I go up to a kiosk or someplace where you don't know the USB, it just gives you power and blocks the data cables. Because I am that security guy. You can get them at various prices. Amazon, if you want to order them that way, which I think is funny. They're like $2 to $5. I got them in red so I don't lose it. The other thing is, as Kirsten said, it's learning an awful lot about you and privacy. I hate to say it, but once you've checked in and your iPhone is on, your Google is on, or using Waze or any of this, the metadata can be used to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it's false paranoia, and this coming from someone who is paranoid.
I think there's a lot of consumer benefits, though, from as this technology marches on. I mean, imagine, if you will, McDonald's, for instance, who's deploying point of sale.
Yep.
I can envision biometric as well as voice-enabled data mining to where you know who the consumer is immediately. You can serve up convenience. Same with hospitality, for instance. I use both Marriott and Hilton, and it would be nice to be able to walk into a room and have the climate instantly adjusted per my taste, the drapes, the lighting, everything. So, I think as the customer or the consumer recognizes the benefits of this, the anxieties and security, I think we'll also see another wave of breach, if you will. This is prime for it. Just like credit card hacks today, I think we'll see another breach of security that will have to be addressed as time marches on as well.
Yep.
Now, I will say my favorite XKCD comic about this, and this is what I've now started doing. Anytime I walk into a new house, I go, "Hello, Alexa, order 800 pounds of creamed corn, please. Yes, confirm the order." Never been invited back, but that is a little bit of the joke that happens with these devices, is your security is that anyone can talk to it.
Yeah.
Unless you put in a PIN number, which you can do through the human user interface. But I do agree the benefits typically outweigh the security, but I'm not going to use voice, the biometric scanning is very cool, but they already know I'm there because my Starbucks app has told them, because I want to be able to walk into a Starbucks and have my Starbucks charge thing right on the phone so I can just swipe it and get my beverage. And I know Starbucks is tracking me now. I'm trading off the two.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is the convenience versus the security of it. All right, let's move on here to PSAV and USAV. Interesting story here, and it's longer than just PSAV acquiring USAV. And the reason I say it's a longer story is about 2 or 3 years ago, a bunch of us were invited to Commercial Integrator and CE Pros event. It was held in August. It was in Washington D.C. and it was a trade show as such. And PSAV and USAV were two separate buying groups for their members that they were like right next to each other, and one serviced the residential market and one serviced the commercial market. And these two groups kind of started talking with each other and hit it off and started doing agreements between the two. And lo and behold, 2 or 3 years later, one has bought the other. So interesting little I guess courtship is the best way to put that. But Earl, I want to start with you from a manufacturer standpoint. How do agreements like this, not just agreements with PSAV or PSA or USAV, but how do agreements like this benefit Peerless AV and manufacturers when it comes to connecting you with their members and their group of buyers?
Sure. We're beginning to witness a lot of these mergers and acquisitions through various verticals. The one that comes to mind most recent was like AVISPL acquiring Anderson Audio out on the West Coast. There's been content providers being purchased by integration companies as well. I think it comes down to the customer base is demanding a wider range of skill sets, and many times a company will go out and form an informal partnership that blossoms throughout time, and then it becomes inevitable that 1 + 1 can equal 3. Now, in the PSA and USAV, I think they were such disparate foundational skill sets of the two companies that when you overlaid the two, it seemed like a logical acquisition. So it'll be interesting. It's always easier to acquire than to integrate. So a lot remains to be seen with some of these acquisitions, but I think in whole, it's about acquiring additional skill set and competency.
No, I would agree with that. Kirsten, how is this going to impact the dealers and the folks that are in the markets with them? So like, let's say that, Kirsten was a member of PSA and I was a member of USAV, and Bradford is just, in his own little world, but we're all three in Chicago, let's say, right? How is that going to impact, both you and me as being members of these two organizations, as well as our competitors?
Well, the answer to that is simple: Co-opetition. Yeah, I'm just going to leave. So that was a great.
That was a great one.
Well, I happen to be at an event right now where they're talking a lot about that, and in fact, there are some USAV members here, and we were chatting about this very subject. But Yeah, no, truly, there is no overlap in the membership actually. So USAV, our AV guys, they can partner now with security people, and we were talking about it, and quite frankly, security often gets invited into the design process earlier than AV, because we all know AV is the last person to get into a project. So luckily, if your security partner buddy from PSA is getting in on a design, on a new construction renovation, they can bring you in earlier. So it could work in their favor, these new collaborative, partnerships. And it's also, it goes back to that same thing we always say, rather than boning up, bringing your team in, trying to get the new skills in by hiring new people, you can,
Partner with somebody.
Co-opetition with, I just want to try to use the word again, with somebody who already is in that field.
No, I love that a lot. Bradford, when groups like this happen, and Kirsten made a good point about security folks being brought in, how much education and how much do you have to, I guess, spin up the knowledge, even though they're bringing in, knowledge base and subject matter experts from a manufacturer standpoint, and you dealing with a project, let's say, that maybe is headed up by a security team or headed up by an IT firm? Do you have to get them up to speed so they can make qualified decisions?
To be honest, I don't think it's any different than an individual dealer from that standpoint.
Okay.
You're going to have qualified people and unqualified people. To quote Kirsten, you're going to have co-opetition happening. It might be this, structured cabling integrator who is a USAV member, but working with AVISPL on actually doing the install. So that's going to happen. But it's not, in my opinion, it's not a distributorship, which is where you have to go back through the dealership or through the distributor for support. You purchase it as a pseudo dealer, but from a support and job standpoint and all of that, I still have to support them as if you still have to make the project successful. I will say the fact that they have more knowledge in-house is beneficial. I do see the logic of, buying in bulk and having the buying group and having the technology sharing. But for the most part, other than dealing with some of the financial stuff, which I don't feel qualified to talk about, it's about transparent to us. If you call tech support, Tim, they're going to treat you the same as if someone from PSA calls tech support. It's about the same thing. You need to make the project successful either way.
And it's making sure that your product, being Harman or Peerless AV's product, works as it's supposed to in that end installation, regardless of who put it in, because your guys' name is on it, right? Regardless of anything else.
And that is the one thing that is sometimes a problem because of purchasing agreements. People feel required to put in those brands instead of making the best decision. But that happens all sorts of places, not just with PSA or USAV.
Okay. All right. Last story here before I let you guys get out of here on this lovely Friday afternoon. Real quickly, the company called CODA Audio is entering into the U.S. market in what I would say is a very interesting way. And I'm glad I have all three of you here because Kirsten's covered international AV, and both you, Earl and Bradford, work for companies who have companies outside of the U.S. And do markets outside the U.S. The thing I find interesting about this is my first experience at ISC was there was a number of companies, CODA was one of them at the time, that were available in European market and in the Middle East market and other markets. And they simply didn't have the desire to enter the U.S. market at the time. And there are still some out there that don't. But the fact that CODA is coming in, it feels like very, very strongly. They're doing an all U.S.-based support staff. They're doing an all U.S.-based team. They hired a young man by the name of Luke Jenkins to manage the process here. Kirsten, when it comes to, we're used to U.S. companies, going overseas, which is how I'm going to talk to Earl and Bradford. But the opposite direction, how do you think this is going to work with CODA coming in and being an outside U.S. company coming in?
Well, I think Luke Jenks is going to be the ultimate, that's what's going to attract people.
Okay.
Pretty respected person.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what it is. Whenever you come to a new market, you need to have somebody that everybody here already trusts. So I think that's going to be a good thing. And I think some of these companies, that come to our market, as long as they have enough, it looks like they have enough solutions for different size projects. People are always looking for a new tool set, and they're looking for, it looks like you said, they're going to have support, system support, sales support, and that's going to be the key.
Yeah.
But again, I think it really does come down to the people. And
No, that's valid.
Yeah.
Bradford, from your standpoint, and Earl, this is going to be the same question to you, going from the opposite direction, right? Getting into a new market and getting into a new country. Let's be frank here. There are different cultures. There are different, not just languages and currency, but people have, they do business differently in the U.S. than they do it elsewhere, and vice versa. So, Bradford, how do you bridge that gap? How do you bridge that divide?
Well, there's all sorts of differences. The first one is the cultural differences. The fact that they're bringing in and having an American-based distributor is huge. I can tell you, Harman has offices in China, in India, in Europe, in South America. We have those there to be able to deal with the local, local customs. Luke is going to have that under his belt because this is what he does. To Kirsten's point, he's well respected. He has a good history. He comes back. What they aren't doing is moving manufacturing. And that's going to be the interesting part because of duties and freight costs and all that. And that is the ultimate challenge expanding across international borders. We manufacture stuff in China. We manufacture stuff in the US. We manufacture stuff in Hungary. We sell the stuff in Hungary in Europe. We sell the stuff we build in China. It's not having to be shipped, not having as high of a duty, not having all those little problems. And that is a lot of the challenges. The other challenge is having support in native language. That's one of those things that not everyone thinks about, but having done this a few times, it's kind of can be important.
But that's where Watson and all of these they're just for you anyway.
Yeah,
see what she did there? That's what you call a bow.
Yeah, see, I'm going to take Watson and do the Mandarin to English since it talks both now. And
yeah.
All right, Earl. Last word here on expanding overseas.
I don't know if there's anything I can add to some of the points that were made, but our challenge is we have 3 offices worldwide. Our headquarters is in Chicago. We have a Mexico City office. And then about 8 or 9 years ago, we entered the European market through London, through a distributor, ironically, who was our Peerless AV distributor in London, a company called BBG. That's now referred to as Peerless AV Europe. They service the entire EMEA marketplace. And along what Kirsten and Bradford pointed out, I think some of the logistics were historically have been known as a manufacturer, US-based manufacturer, but we're now with displays and kiosks and such, we source all over the globe. And it does present a logistical quandary of where the best efficiencies are going to be, and then the languages are an issue. You have regulations in all the European countries that vary, but to Kirsten's point, at the end of the day, entering Europe for us was all about the people, and I think this very much the same will be true for CODA. Luke apparently has a great reputation, and people buy from people.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, we're going to end. That's a good old sales adage. So, all 3 of you have things going on at Infocom. So we're going to start with Kirsten here, who is in charge of the center stage. So, what do you have going on at Infocom, and then how can people find you, Ms. Kirsten Nelson?
Wow, thanks. Yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. It's been a really cool project. I've been working with Infocom on something that's brand new at the show this year. It's called Center Stage. It is, appropriately enough, in the center of the show floor. It'll be very easy to find. Technically it's booth number 3461, but it's going to be a really huge stage with full scale LED video screens and real lighting, and all of it's going to be live streamed and recorded for future distribution, so that it's basically happening there live. I developed 3 days worth of programming, like all day, every day. We have sessions taking place on that stage. They're 20-minute sessions, they're dialogues, and everyone I've invited to come speak, they are people who are bringing new ideas to our space. It's not just going to be product slinging. It's going to be conversations about how we're using some of the stuff we talked about here and beyond. And some of the stuff you hear a lot about, but you don't know how you're going to apply it to AV. We're bringing that to Center Stage so we can take a look at it and gain some perspective on how it's going to change our business. So.
Very cool. All right. And how do people get a hold of you if they're so inclined?
Oh, well, that's how you find me. Is at Center Stage. At
Center Stage? All right. If they're not going to Infocom and they want to hire or get a hold of Kirsten Nelson, how do they do that?
Oh, well, my email address is really long.
How about Twitter? Do you have Twitter?
I do have Twitter. I'm
there
at Kirsten Nelson, and I, not to be confused with the actress by the same name. I often get tweets for her.
Do you respond? You should totally catfish that.
I know. I should use that to leverage my audience.
Also with us has been Earl from Peerless AV. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me, Tim. I've enjoyed the hour.
Absolutely.
Our plans for Infocom are massive. This is our biggest show of the year. And Brian McClymans, who's our Vice President of North American Sales and APAC, will be joined at Center Stage. So we'll see you there, Kirsten, along with Rodney Ward, who manages all the technical for the International Speedway. I don't know if you're aware of this, but we have the largest outdoor display deployment in the U.S. that we're aware of, near 1,000 displays. And so they're going to be spending some time together on Center Stage. But we're at booth 901. We've got all kinds of new products, vertical lift, new displays, the new 4th generation digital signage product called Supreme. So we'll be there in tour de force.
All right, very good. And if people want to get a hold of you outside of Infocom, how do they do that?
Well, if you look at my name, you just put a hashtag between the L and the N. So Earl_Negley, just at Earl_Negley on social media, and you'll find me.
All right, very good. Last but not least, Mr. Bradford Ben, thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me as always.
And
you're going to ask, how do people find me at Infocom?
Yes, I am.
So watch this. So Harmon is right by the entrance in booth 3201, and we happen to be on the main aisle that goes right down to Center Stage to go visit Kirsten. We also happen to be right around a whole bunch of AVNation underwriters for those who are playing Find AVNation.
Mm-hmm.
I will be having a special cool thing for Find AVNation at the Harmon booth. You also can find me, of course, at AVNation. You can find me on the social media, or I might be hanging out in our listening room on the loud hours, which are even, which is listening room W222A. So, and of course, there's also a Samsung booth. If you can't find that, there's always lighting.
All right. So the even hours are like 10, 12, 2.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear.
You can go to the Harmon website, pro.harmon.com, and click events and click Infocom. You even can register for free, and it has the schedule and maps to all these places.
Oh, very cool. I'll have to grab some. I have to make a map for ours. My name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me on the Twitters, but go by the website. Bradford was very nice, and spent an awful lot of blood, sweat, and tears putting it together. It's brand new as of April 1st. AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. You'll find our Infocom section there. Bradford mentioned our Find AVNation. It's a neat little contest that that we've started in conjunction with all of our underwriters. Peerless AV is one, and Harman is one as well. So thank you very much. You can check out our underwriters. These are the folks that help us do what we do, whether it's covering Infocom or ISE or CEDIA or New York Digital Signage Week or Digital Signage Expo or whatever, or just bringing you these programs every week. They help us do what we do. So we thank them. All of this is on our website. Also have a brand new show that I want you guys to check out if you would, please. It's called The AV Profession. And what it is, it's 10 minutes of business consulting from the folks at Navigate Consulting. They're joining us, but every 2 weeks we'll post a new one. So that's called The AV Profession. That's also on our website, AVNation.tv. AVNation.tv. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. This has been AV Week.